Hi, everybody. I am Michael Bean. I'm an acting teacher based in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And today is our Ask Me Anything session for myfreeactingclass.com. Today on Thursday, what is today? October the 22nd. So we have two of our longtime students here in the session, and I know some of you are watching on YouTube, and so we're relying on them to do the good work for us. Before anything else, I will say that one of the only things that is like fresh or new interesting to me on my mind today is that I purchased some equipment on Amazon recently, including this ring light, and I'm experimenting with a different ring light today. And I got to say that so far, this is the best one that I've tried. I mean, I've also got a giant one that's good for self-tapes, where I can make myself look good even if it's dark out against this backdrop, which is really nice without a shadow. But for desktop stuff, for daytime stuff, this is I think I just went on Amazon and was like, what's the least expensive one? And I got that one. And then I also got this one, which is like the second least expensive one, which is the newer NW831. So it comes with a tripod. You can change the brightness. It's got a little shoe for an iPhone right in the middle. Gosh, I don't remember exactly what it cost, but it was like $50 or $60 Canadian. So currently the Union of BC Performers is still offering a $50 rebate for equipment related to self-tapes. So you could get one of these, and then you probably want to also spring for a $25 lavalier mic for your phone. But if you did both of those things, you would have like a pro home tape setup equipment-wise, and the Union would give you $50 of that back. So 6 cups of coffee. That's that would be your total output, in cash. If we're talking about expensive, cups of coffee that you would get in Vancouver, where coffee's too expensive. Questions? What do you got? Hit me, because I want to talk to you about the things you want to be talked about. If you could see their faces right now, Candy's going like this, and Christina's just going like this, and alternating between that and this. Oh, and now she's like this, which I'm not doing nearly enough justice to, because she's much more charming than I am. What would you like me to talk about, friends? Okay, the open-endedness is too much. I can give you some options. Okay, so yesterday, for instance, I picked one thing that was that's on the list on the 10 questions story sheet, and I just did a deep dive on it. I was like, great, there's this one question about personalization. I'm going to do a whole lesson on that. On Tuesday, I picked an acting book that I like, which is this one here, Ivana Chubbuck's The Power of the Actor. This is one of the books that I engaged with kind of early on. I know I'm a little bit late on getting that that video uploaded to YouTube, but I will. And I went over just the introduction, and I'm going to keep this on my desk so that on days when people are like, I don't know, I can be like, great. So next chapter, and we'll go through chapter 1. All right, so I can talk about so I can talk about an aspect of breaking down scenes. I can go over a film and TV script with you, or commercial script. I can talk industry things. What's most interesting to you today?
I think I like the idea of the breaking down, the script that you're talking about, from your book, or that you were reading.
Okay. Now, do you mean going over? Let me find it. Do you mean going over? Oh, that didn't open up. Do you remember do you mean going over this one in detail? and picking something from here? Or do you mean picking something from Ivana's book and talking about that in more detail?
Ivana's book? That'd
Okay,
be
great.
interesting because I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating book. The I no disrespect to Ivana, because the thing that I said on Tuesday is that when I was in Los Angeles in 2015, you're exploring different teachers, and I went to as many different like high level workshops as I possibly could, and I sort of talked my way into some. I was like, I run a studio in Vancouver. I know you don't normally allow auditors, but and so I sat in on a number of different teachers' classes. And I was there for 2 weeks, but I was there to do a week-long intensive with a man named Larry Moss, whose classes are very difficult to get into. I think that was the year that Leonardo DiCaprio came and watched, several of the days, because he's a longtime student of Larry's, and which for me was a new experience, to have an A-list celebrity in the room. It's the only time that's ever happened to me. And some of the best work that I saw when I was in Los Angeles was in Ivana's advanced class, or her master class. Right, so definitely the actors there are taking their work very seriously. Now, one of the things that she said afterwards, because I went to their sit on the master class, and then I kind of Ivana talks up the school to you afterwards. So it had I had the sense that this is a speech that she gives every week, but it's a very compelling story, because she talked about how when Brad Pitt first came to town, to Los Angeles, that her studio was one of the ones that he was studying at. And her school has this unique thing, I think just because it's larger, where you're partnered up with a scene partner to work in class, but I've never heard of any other school doing this. And I don't actually know how they implement it. I only got the sales pitch, but you can see that it stuck with me. And so she said that their policy is that if you can fire your scene partner at any time with no questions asked. So they're like, Christina, you're going to be with Candy. Here's your scene. It's from this play. And that Candy at any time, with no questions asked, for any reason, can just be like, you know what? I don't want to work with Christina anymore. She's fired. Give me a new scene partner. And then they'll just give you a new scene partner. And so she said that when Brad Pitt was first studying at her school, his scene partners would fire him all the time, because he wanted to rehearse too much. They were like, God, this guy's just such a pain. He wants to rehearse too much. Give me somebody else. Give me somebody who's more realistic. And I loved that. Just as an idea, I think that it's a really concrete. Here's a story about somebody who has been as successful as it is possible to be as an actor. And the story of him starting off, going to all the classes he can, working really hard, and how his scene partners are all like, this guy's insane. Nobody should put in this much work. Yeah, so it's a compelling origin story. So Ivana, in her book, which could very easily have been ghostwritten, by somebody else, but I'm sure uses tools, that she originated, goes through a 12-step, a 12-step process, where each step builds on the one right before it. And it's very intuitive. If you've never exposed yourself to one of these, here are, the 10 steps to it. Larry Moss's book, for instance, much more creative and artistic, and lots of excellent ideas, but they're not put into any semblance of this one always comes after this one, partly because I think that art doesn't actually work that way. But if you wanted something that felt accessible as an intro, I think this book is a good option. And so her 12 steps rather, are overall objective. So what does your character want for their life? Scene objective, right? What do I want, to win in this scene? And you can see already there's a real easy straight line. First, I'm what I want is to be loved, because my character has never got the love they needed from their parents or from their friends. And so they've got this hole in their heart, and they're just trying desperately to be loved everywhere in their lives. And so in this scene where it's whether it's like an intense dramatic movie, and what I want, in my scene with Candy, is to like get her like to acknowledge all the ways that she let me down when we were growing up together. Or if the scene is like a silly comedy, and what I want is for like, Candy to like give me the last candy bar. Either way, I can start with that, basic life objective of like, I've never been loved enough, and that's why the candy bar is so important, right? And so that can feed drama, but it can also feed comedy. We've talked about, or I've talked about in these lessons, how one approach to comedy is big feelings about stupid stuff. And so if you're like, my deepest pain in life is connected to this thing that makes me want this candy bar and it's life or death, then I can be really worked up about it and like rage and cry. And hopefully you can laugh your asses off while I do that. You're like, oh my God, why does this guy care so much about the candy bar? That's just dumb. And then I get to feel good too as an actor. I still get that endorphin hit of feeling big feelings that aren't about my personal life. So I get to go on the ride and feel all the feels, and then as soon as the scene's over, I'm like, I don't actually care about that thing. So her step one is overall objective. Her step two, tool two is scene objective. Her third thing is the obstacles. Her fourth is the substitution. Pardon me for a moment. Hi, kid. Welcome back. Just teaching. Got another 15 minutes, and I'll come find you. Her tool number 5 is inner object, and then beats and actions, moment before, place and fourth wall, doings, inner monologue, previous circumstances, and then her number 12 is let it go, which I like, which is one of those like, do all of your prep. Okay, now it's time to act. Just look at the other person and do the thing. And like, if it's not the right homework, it's not going to stick with you, which I really like. Because I think that Larry has something similar in his book. Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom to it, because otherwise you can be like, cool, so first I make all the right decisions, and then I just have to like follow the playbook perfectly. It's like, no, sorry. Like, you're going to do all of this prep, and now you just have to look at the other person. And if the prep stays with you in a way that makes you feel more strongly and help sell the story, then it was the right kind of prep. And you won't actually know that until after you've just looked at the other person and tried to do the scene and seen if it works. So let me go through the brief version, like my understanding of each of these 12 steps. Now, yes, on Tuesday, in the introduction, it becomes very clear that Ivana's work, is essentially rooted in win. Like, win at all costs. Like, your character always needs to win, wants to win, no matter what. Like, keep focused on winning. And that the impetus or the reason for that wanting to win comes from pain. So you could read Ivana's book and be like, wow, this sounds like you might really mess you up psychologically, because her basic approach is like, what's the most painful personal thing in your life right now? Like, can you make the scene entirely about that so that you have to force yourself to win at all costs? And so it's not like, I have pain. It's like, the reason I need to win is because of pain. And it can be very effective in terms of being compelling, because it's dangerous, right? You're watching actors genuinely experience something that is painful or uncomfortable for them. And I think that danger grabs our attention. I think that this is just an absolutely normal human thing, that no risk, no attention typically, and so this is why when actors come into acting and they say, oh, but I'm really shy. Like, when people look at me, it like really freaks me out, but I really want to act. I'm like, you know what? Lots of the very best actors I know self-identify as shy people. And the way that I make sense of that, like, that's just a fact. I don't have science. It's not like I've done a survey of 10,000 actors. I just know that some of the very best actors I know self-identify as shy people. And then I've probably worked with, I don't know, I've never done the math, thousands and thousands and thousands of students over 20 years of doing this work. And I've seen folks who identify as very shy become very, very skilled. And the story that I make out of that is that if just people looking at you makes you feel really intensely, initially that's going to make acting really hard. But once you get over the hurdle of getting the technical skills down, if you can take all of that, like, oh my God, they're looking and the camera's looking, blah, and you can put it into the scene, then suddenly you are escalated in a way that makes your work dangerous and interesting. And people are like, wow, I really want to watch that person because they're very compelling. Because on the inside, the person's kind of freaking out. But if they put it into the character, and especially if they get more familiar with putting that into the character in different ways and using that like extra fire to tell the story in different ways, it can be very, very interesting to watch. So top level, Ivana Chubbuck approach is like overcome your pain by winning. Right. And so step one overall objective is like, what's your pain? And the scene objective is like, what do you need from this other person that will help? We're going to try to soothe your pain with, except it won't actually ever make your pain go away because pain. And then obstacles are like, what are they doing that makes your pain worse? Right? Like you make it hard for yourself. And this comes back to something Carrie Sandomirsky said to me when Carrie came in as a guest a couple of months ago. And I can give you the link to her session again if you're like, who was that? Or I didn't see that, because she had me hide it, make it a private link that you can only see if you've got the link. But Carrie's a wonderful teacher. Carrie's the person I most want to study with in Vancouver. But of course, she doesn't teach unless I get a group of actors together and I'm like, Carrie, here's the day, here's the time. I've got the actors together, because like she's just too busy being an artist and living her life. And Carrie, once she was talking about being on stage, and she's like, if it's too easy for me to get from one place to the other on stage, like if I'm following somebody and there's a clear path on the stage, I'll rearrange the set. I'll just put the furniture in my way, because that's just more interesting. If I can get right where I'm going, like it's a stage. Like once I'm there, then what? So I loved that basic idea, because it's a metaphor, but it's also real, which is that if you make it easy to get where you're going, it's not that interesting to watch. And when I'm talking to students about obstacles, I will say, what makes us care about your character is that it's hard for them to get what they want, right? That your character wants a thing, they have an objective, and something gets in the way, and they try and win anyway, and they try and get it, and they try and get it, and they try and get it, and they fail, and they try and get it, and they fail, and they try and get it, and they fail, and we watch that, and we're like, yeah, that's like my life. And we feel them. And then at the end of the movie, after 90 minutes or 2 hours of watching them try to get what they want and fail, they finally get what they want, and you're like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll get what I want too. Right? But if they just try to get what they want and they get it, and it all happens in 2 minutes, you're like, okay, now what? It's also like, that's not like my life. Who is this person? Like, they just tried to get what they want. Hey, I want this thing. Okay, well, that wasn't a very interesting story, and also not super relatable. Right? So obstacles are like what makes the pain worse. Substitution, is how can you make this person about your pain? Right. So if I'm doing the scene with Candy, it's like, and I know what the most painful thing is, like, what can I see in Candy that reminds me of the person that brings me the most pain? The substitution really is like pain, like put the pain to work. Like the pain is fuel. I know. Yeah. See, Christina's making this like pain face. And I think that Ivana's work is about that. And I'm joking about it as a way of helping the ideas stick, but I also think that it is effective, especially in film, where they're like, here's a scene, do a compelling read of this tomorrow. That finding something, anything to put underneath it that is really charged can be very, very effective. Now, obviously, actors who have more theater training, who have thousands of hours of exploring different characters, they're like, oh, I know how to tell that compelling story in these other ways. And so I also think those are really important tools to build. But initially, if somebody doesn't have those 1,000 hours to put in, or they have no interest in doing theater, then you can just be like, Candy, what's your pain? Make the scene about your pain. but still tell the story. Like, not just your pain, overcome your pain by winning the story. Then you can do it. So substitution, the inner object, is when I say, Candy, you and me, we're going to California. Right, and I, like, my character feels about California in this way. So what am I really saying? And she recommends writing it right under the word California. Candy, like, you and I are going to Disneyland. So it's like, we're going to California. Or like, you and I are going to hell together. Like, yeah, you and I, we're going to California. Hell. Like, totally different. So it's like, what's my inner object? And she recommends writing it right underneath. So you're like, oh, I know what I'm saying. I know how my character feels about this, and I know exactly what thing I feel that way about. When I talk about that tool, I call it personalization. You can call it spaghetti. The whole point is that you make a clear choice about what it is that you're talking about, in a way that feels real and emotionally charged for you. So, right. So, how can you, and of course, how can you make your object make your pain worse? Right. Because it's Ivana we're talking about. So it's like, it's not just like California, but it's like, how does California trigger my pain? Like, what I'm really talking about is like the house of the person who makes me the most upset. Like, okay, great. Like, and then like, they just get a little echo of like, yeah, Katie, we're going to California. And you're like, ooh, something going on there. There's something interesting about California for them. What's it about? Beats and actions are like, the how it shifts from moment to moment. So beats are a small pause, or like a shift in the emotional tone of the scene, or a new thought, usually accompanied by a small pause. There's a really fun story about the word beat, which I won't take time to tell you right now because I want to stay on track, but it's really fun. And then actions are like how you are accomplishing your thing, right? So actions is like, I'm going to punch you with this word. I'm going to teach you with this sentence. I'm going to instruct you, which is different from teaching because it feels different to me. And then I'm going to judge you with this next one. And then I'm going to, like, rip you apart with this next one, right? Like, I'm picking like pain adjectives, but you can do that in comedy as well. It's just that in comedy, there's no consequences. I'm going to rip you apart, and then we're going to go for coffee. Right? It's like in drama, it's like, I'm going to rip you apart, and then you're going to be in pieces. Yeah. Ooh, but I'm also going to hate myself for doing it because pain, right? Like, yeah, exactly. Right. So let's looking at this list again, so that it's here somewhere, you can take a quick screenshot. I'll hold it up long enough that you can do that if you want to. Then you don't have to write it all down. The beats and actions. The next one is moment before. So basically what happens right before your scene, and of course, how does it trigger your pain and make your pain worse? Next one is place and fourth wall. And she straight up recommends, like, what is the place that activates your pain the most? Great, pretend you're there. As long as you say, like, here we are at the office, you can still be like, I'm in my childhood bedroom. Like, and you can be imagining it. Yeah, Christina?
So when I'm acting, I kind of find it hard to like engage with like pain I've had before, to like make it like, how do you like, how you're supposed to like get back those feelings to like make your like acting more real. Like, but I find it hard to actually do that. So I don't really know how to like get into that part of that zone. I'm really sad because like I find it really hard to get back into that zone. Like if I'm past it, it's like not easy for me to get back in.
Yeah.
So how would you get back in? Like,
it's a great question, and I'm going to make a note and come back to it because we're almost at 4:30. So I'm going to go through the last sort of 3 steps of Ivana's thing and joke about how they're going to make your pain worse, and then I'll talk very briefly about how I interact with this work as an actor, which maybe is like the best place for me to start answering your question, which is a much more complex question, because what you're really saying is, or the way that I experience your question is, what you want is there, or the way you framed your question is, there must be a right way to do it, and I'm not doing it because it's not working. And I'm of course going to dodge that question because I don't think it's accurate. I think that there are a bunch of different ways to try and make that happen for yourself, and that you have to experiment with them until you find the one that works. And if you haven't found one that works, it doesn't mean anything is wrong with you, and it doesn't mean you don't have the right answer. It just means you haven't found one that works yet. But there probably is one. And of course, because we're talking about pain, like we're talking about deep discomfort. Feeling deep discomfort is never going to feel comfortable, ever. Even if it's discomfort you really, really want, or really is like helping you grow as a person or helping you express as an artist, feeling pain is going to be really painful, period. End, stop, full story. Like it's never gonna be like, yeah, man, I'm just more pain. Yeah, hook me up. Like afterwards you can have that experience, but like, how some people, they love doing like the tough mudder, and they're less like, that's just like suffering. Like I run until I puke, and then I run some more, and then afterwards I feel amazing, right? But nobody's like, I run until I puke, and God, I love puking from running. Oh, it just fills me with joy. Nothing like the taste of bile. Right? And so you may, as an actor, get to the point where your body learns that feeling the uncomfortable feels doesn't mean any harm is happening to you, and you kind of crave it and love the adrenaline high and love the experience afterwards. But in the moment of living in the story where something horrible is happening and actually living it is always going to feel shaky and weird and uncomfortable and painful and uncomfortable. Always. And if you expect anything different, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's my opinion. Delivered very strongly as though it's a fact. I can't help myself sometimes. I was trained, by like heteronormative masculinity, and sometimes I just find myself speaking like, this is a fact, Christina. And then I'm like, actually, it's just something I feel strongly about in this moment. And I reserve the right to change my mind 30 seconds from now. It's a thing. Okay, so what else we got? We got doings, which is like physical behavior that, of course, helps you try to win, right? So if I'm trying to you get Candy to give me, the last candy bar, then, like, what am I doing about it? Like, I'm going to physically trap her. I'm going to back her into the corner. I'm going to grab give it to me, right? Like that, exactly. So, we're going to play that game, and there's going to be doings involved. Inner monologue is, what am I saying to myself? And of course, because it's this style, it's like, how does it, make my pain worse? So that I have to work harder to overcome it, because it's not just the feeling the pain, it's the, what do you do to overcome it? And I think that you would be previous circumstances is, what is my history? What is my character's history? How did this pain come to them? How does that relate to this? Again, we're just looking for ways to make their lives more difficult. And then the last one is just let it all go. But Christina, I think it would be doing a disservice to Ivana's work, which, like I said, is very, very effective, for some actors, to give you the impression that it's about feeling the pain. Her work is specifically about overcoming the pain. Like, basically use the pain as a reason so that you have to win. So that winning is actually the most important thing, but pain is the why. Pain is the why you have to win. And so then if we were just going to touch on an answer to your, like, okay, well, what if I revisit painful experiences of my life and I don't actually feel anything, which is sort of your question. Is that right, Christina? Oh, looks like she had technical issues or had to go. So if that's the question of, like, how do I activate those painful experiences? For some people, simply revisiting and like an event in their past is enough to call up the feeling in their body. But that's only some people. And for some people, imagining themselves into the character's experience, is enough to bring up the feeling in their body, where they're like, oh yeah, just read the script really deeply and I imagine that person, and then I feel it. That totally works for some people. For some people, imagining themselves in that experience, where they're like, oh yeah, it's like, I imagine what it would be like if I had that background and I was there trying to get that candy bar, and then I feel the feelings. Right. So, some people use their own history. Some people, hi Christina, welcome back. Some people use their own history and that works for them. Some people imagine it, like if I'm imagining myself, imagining the character, just engaging deeply with my imagination. Some people like I imagine myself in that situation. Some people, what they need to do is do it somatically. You've seen me do this with people. If anybody was here, even in yesterday's lesson, with one of the young actors who was trying to like personalize anger. I was like, "Where's anger in your body? Like, show me with your hand. What does it do?" And she's like, got her hand here, and I'm like, "What is it?" She's like, "This." I'm like, "Yeah, put it on your body." Go, okay, it's there. And I'm gonna find it that way in like a fully body-based way. That's like to try and get out of my head. I'm a real head case, so those tools tend to work well for me. Movement and sound often makes me feel more uncomfortable, and expressive than words. And sometimes I find just the right words, for it. But that's like, here's the tool belt, like the very rough overview, as opposed to here's the one thing, and if you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. Which I think was the answer that you wanted, Christina, but I don't have it for you because there's lots of different ways up this mountain, and you're just going to have to keep exploring until you find the thing that actually makes you feel. Do you know what I'm saying? Now I will say that the more you drill the technical things, learning the lines, being on your marks, being in the right place, keeping your eye lines out close, the more you get those things in your body, the more of your brain is free and available to do the feeling. Right? So initially, one of the barriers that you may not even be realizing is that fully half or more of your attention is on, what do I say next? What do I say next? Oh God, am I looking in the right place? Oh God, like all of that stuff. And only once that stuff is down to like just a little teeny sliver of your attention, will most of your attention be available for feel. How do I feel? What am I feeling when I look at this other person? Like how can I make myself want this candy bar so much that it's life or death? Like that'd be a fun game to play. Like, can I be watching my other person's face all the time and reacting to every little thing they're doing? And I can only do that when the technical stuff is this much of my attention, and I have this much attention left, to do that, because it takes a lot of attention, to like feel deeply and engage. Does that help answer your question? I know I've given a plug for this book before, Christina, and I don't know, stick with us and I'll get you one for Christmas. But it's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and it was definitely very influential for me in terms of Julia Cameron. In terms of helping me investigate the practices that made me feel. It's essentially like a series of writing prompts, and a daily journaling practice that is so simple and so profound in its effects. Okay, so talking about like attention, talking about how to feel. Great. These are great ideas for next week. A reminder that if you've got them, please send me self-tapes before Monday. Even an old self-tape is great, because then you are less emotionally attached to it, but you still get all the benefits. So if you've got a self-tape, even one that you've done anytime in the last 6 months, send it to me or send me a link, because on Monday, I'm going to be looking at those self-tapes. Monday is self-tape review as a way of looking at camera technique, but also giving you concrete feedback. Okay. We ran just a touch over. Thanks for making time today. Oh, Christine, did you have a question before we go?
No, Christian. I was gonna say, for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I have after school activities. So the only days
I gotta get better at uploading them to YouTube. I'm on it. I'm gonna catch up. I'm gonna start doing it every day right after class. Well, okay, I'm try every day, and then if after the second day, then that'll be big progress from like once every 2 weeks, which is what happened this time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you. This is great.